All right. So delighted to be here with you today, Marguerite. Um, I just want to let everyone know who might not happen to know that you have been teaching about goddesses and in an academic way as well as in this channeled way. And you started way back in the 1990s with Mary Magdalene and then went off into Mother Mary Parthenogenesis land and created the most incredible books that have changed my life. And now you're back to Mary Magdalene and just wondering, how did this happen? How did you come
Yeah.
back to her?
Well, it's interesting because I always sort of survey psychically my landscape of what do I have to offer? What's next? And usually like there's some big cauldron of it that is like, yeah, this is the next thing. And that's what happened with the Magdalene material because it's so rich and I've taught about it in different contexts, sort of out in the public and then in academia as well. And I thought, there's so much more for me to do and offer. And my classes have been going in as deep dives, on various topics and people and so forth. So this felt like the next one. And a good thing that it did, because as I was researching for getting the course description together, it dove me back into the texts, which are the basis for the class, the New Testament and the Gnostic Gospels. But of course, we're going to make it all relevant to ourselves, right?
Mhm.
But I was either reminded or I went in and could see with new eyes things that I had not seen before based on all of this research that I'd done over the past 30 years. And a lot of that is going into my new book on Mary that I'm finishing up as we're recording this.
Wow.
And so that it enabled me to flesh out that whole section about the relationship between Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene. And then it's allowing me to flesh out the course. So I just kind of trust my instincts. I seem to be going into the hidden secrets of the Gnostic world more and more, and how it's all been there in the West from the beginning, and what is there, and what does it mean for us? How do we extract what we need to enhance our lives and go deeper into our spiritual path and awakening, and even ascension?
Right. Um, so there's just so much here. I'm like, I can't tell you how excited because Mary Magdalene was also my sort of
Yeah.
catalytic moment in goddess. I mean, I think I was into the goddess stuff, but Mary Magdalene sort of, she was a real person, so she had a whole other dimension into all of this. And part of her being seen as a prostitute intrigued me even more. You know what I mean? Even though it was the wrong interpretation.
Wrong interpretation of the right information. You know what I
Do you want to say more about that?
Well, here's what I'm finding. And I think a lot of people over the past 30 years, since I looked at this last time, whatever, have been intuiting this or channeling this or what have you. But that what I've discovered is that Magdalene, I can piece it together from what I see in the Gnostic sources, especially the Gospel of Philip, and then what I know about Sophia, Divine Birth, Mother Mary, and so forth, and the history of the priestesses that Mary was involved in, Mother Mary. There, a good case could be made that Mary Magdalene was some form of a Qadesha, whether that was her actual role, title, function in a Hebrew temple or not.
Mhm.
Those women were very interesting because they could be both celibate and sexual servants
Mhm.
in the sacred context.
Mhm.
So what we're talking about, and I think what happened is later this degenerated into more of a pay for sexual services. Oh, it happens to be in the temple, and oh, the temple happens to get the money of the men. But originally, this was something else. This was a sacred encounter, a sacred marriage kind of experience. And it could well be that Mary Magdalene was one of those women. When we see all the material swirling around her, and then the later Christian conflation of her with the woman with the alabaster jar, you start understanding, oh, okay, she could have been that sacred sexual woman who was considered a kind of a prostitute, but not in the way that we think of it now. All right.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we're going to look at in my new course, which you have so beautiful. The Seven Sisters. Sorry, seven is a big number for me. Obviously, I was born 7/7. The Seven Mysteries of Magdalene. That's my new course. That's launching February 21st, 2023, and will continue to be available in replay. So, we're going to look at that. Who is this Magdalene? What is that prostitute identifier, and how does that relate to her relationship with Jesus and Mother Mary?
Right. And what I'm really appreciating now is that there was a time where we thought that this connection to the prostitute thing was completely wrong. There was no connection.
There was no connection.
But now it's like, oh, they just used a piece and turned it against her, and just one small piece of truth against.
And let me ask you this, Michelle, in your research, because I know you're a big Sumer researcher, Inanna researcher. Did you come across the priestess role of the Nugig?
Well, I came across the Qadesha.
Okay.
And the Nugig actually is mentioned in, I know I came across it in my research, but I didn't dive totally into it. But is it related to this as well?
Well, here's what I found.
Okay.
And I was able to put this in my book, The Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception. But of course, there's so much information. How could anyone track?
Yeah.
But the Nugig.
You did. That's right. That's why it's also
basically, the title of like the first queen of Ur. And it meant sacred woman who's also a prostitute.
Okay. Well,
that's essentially what the title meant, like holy woman who's also a prostitute. So these were the women who were engaged in these sacred sexual marriage rites.
Yes.
Connected with Inanna, that is explained in the Inanna Dumuzi story and so forth. So these actual historical women were called the whore and the holy one at the same time. Like the whore was the holy one.
Yes. And actually I did research that quite a bit, and maybe not under the term of Nugig, because the sacred marriage was rampant in all of the different worships of the deities in Sumer. Right. And so the high priestess, the end priestess, was always the human embodiment of the god's wife.
Yes.
And so she would then, and through her, it's all it's a bit confusing. Like, was it all the end priestesses that could validate the king if they had the sacred marriage with her? And that's who I studied was Enheduanna, the first known author. And she was called a sacred prostitute. And I only found her.
Was she?
But that was, a lot of scholars said that's not actually the accurate term. But again, there's this connection because she was involved in the sacred marriage. It's just because it was such a sacred mystery, and we haven't had you dive into it to help us elucidate, from this perspective. I only went so far, but we don't know exactly. It's like they kept it as mysterious as possible, of course, but there is hinting all over the place that when she became the high priestess, there was a sacred marriage ritual. And they burned the bed afterwards. There's clay tablets that show all the all that was ordered for this ritual. It was such a big deal.
Wow, I'm just getting chills.
Right? I mean, it's like there's proof, and
Yeah.
I'm happy to. Betty Mador is the one who actually wrote
Love
about
her.
this. You
I
heard of
know
her?
I have or had her book. Um, I I know. Inanna, Lady of the Largest Heart.
Yes,
I'm
Inanna
looking
Lady.
at it right now. It's on my bookshelf. I can see it right there. And I was deep into this for a while, but this is the context.
Yes, yes, yes.
You mind if I just close my shade
Of
because
course, yeah.
there's going to be a lot of sunlight.
I'm gonna
We're
get my
getting
water actually.
surprising, surprising advent of sun here. Um, so this is part of the context in this part of the world, the Levant coast, the Middle East, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure what the correct term is these days, but Iran, Iraq, Sumer, Mesopotamia, this was what was swimming around in that world. And it irks me to no end that scholars deny that there could have been a sacred sexual rite. And there's a whole anthology devoted to sacred marriage, looking at this and
Oh,
yet, it's just so weird. So I've been in there looking at, okay, what was sacred marriage versus sacred parthenogenesis, which is the virgin birth piece. So I see Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene as bookends. Okay, so Mother Mary conceived the avatar,
right.
and Mary Magdalene continued his lineage. But Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene were both Marys. They were priestesses, what I call of divine love and womb mysteries. Okay, so that's a major thing that we're going to be looking at in the course, and that is part of my next book on Mother Mary. So these are profound mysteries about, on the esoteric level, what were these women all about?
Right.
And why were they all named Mary? And, that being a priestess title, right? I've talked about that.
Yes.
So now we're just stirring the pot with more rainbow colors when we add Magdalene into it. And this is part of her mystery work. And then, I would call this, the sacred marriage part, the sacred marriage mystery. But this is also for, divine womb power connectivity and Kundalini activation. So that's one mystery. And then we have the bridal chamber mystery, which could be related to that, but that's big time in the Gospel of Philip, where it sounds like it's a couple coming together into the bridal chamber to have a sacred sexual encounter without any entities involved. Okay. But the bridal chamber is also an inner process, right? So that's one of the mysteries. And how is this relevant for our lives? How do we have this inner marriage so that we can have the sacred marriage? And what does that mean on the planet then? When you have a sacred marriage, what I'm getting right now is that you conceive different types of children. That I have always known. Right. But putting it all together with also what Sri Kaleshwar says about, through a mantra practice, a regular old couple can conceive divine children. This is about getting in the next generations of children on the planet who are a much more elevated vibration. They can go to planet Zordon to work out their karma. Let's have the souls who are ready to help turn Earthship around come in now. The star seeds and beyond. Not that they're not coming in, but we need more consciousness in the area of conception. And, it is said that Magdalene, that's one of the things we're going to be looking at, some of the details, that Magdalene had one or more children by Jesus.
Was one of them Sarah?
Sarah La Kali.
Okay.
Okay. And that's in the French legend, right?
Right.
Well, that's an interesting name. What the heck is their daughter being named Sarah La Kali for? Well, Sarah is an ancient priestess title.
Yep.
That was given to Sarah, the wife of Abraham, who, as we know, parthenogenetically conceived
Yes.
Isaac. So we're talking about these lineages of womb women and conception mysteries. So the daughter was named Sarah, La Kali, which connects her with Kali and the Hindu tradition, which, according to Sri Kaleshwar, Jesus did live in India. His timeline is that Jesus resurrected to India, body and soul, and that Mary Magdalene joined him there. They had children, and their lineages still continue.
Oh.
The French legend is that, and the Western legend is that Jesus left the earth plane, resurrected to full deity, maintained his contact through the astral plane with people. Mary Magdalene was previously impregnated.
Right.
Or it could have been a posthumous thing because Isis had that posthumous conception with Osiris.
Right.
It could have been that mystery.
Right.
No one for sure knows. And that their lineage lived on in France.
Right.
Okay, so there's all this material kind of swirling around about where did these people go? What did their lineage do? Is their lineage still active with their vibration? Right. And I think, in a way, the Da Vinci Code was trying to get at that with Sophie. Isn't Sophie Neveu, is she an ancestor of this whole thing? It turns out.
Yes, she is. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So what, this is why there would be a periodic renewal, of the sacred king, because the energy would only last so long on the earth plane in 3 dimensions once an avatar came on. And so, how long can that DNA transmit the energy of Magdalene and Jesus? That's an interesting question. Never really fully went into it.
Right. Have you encountered Kathleen McGowan's books at all?
She's a novelist.
Yes.
I haven't, I know of them, but I haven't read them. She's tapped in.
She's tapped in, and it's very interesting because her focus is how the lineage of Mary Magdalene was continued through her devotees.
Yes.
And one of them being Anne Boleyn.
Wouldn't doubt it.
Right? And many others of women that we haven't even heard of. And it's so fascinating. She dives into the research and turns them into novels so that she's not, ruffling too many feathers.
Right. That, all these mysteries that we start uncovering when we really look into the histories of these.
Exactly.
It's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. And it's, again, when you were talking about in the Fae course, how you said that there's been so much interference in the sacred marriage.
That's right. The course on Guinevere, Arthur,
Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII are also have been messed up that way as well.
No kidding.
Yeah, they slandered her, but she was actually trying to bring in the Magdalene and a whole new spirituality, and that's why she was a threat.
Chills.
Isn't that intense?
Yeah.
I mean, she's written a 2-part book, and the first one only has come out so far. The second one will come out.
Bless her heart. I'm so glad she's diving in. It's amazing. You go rummaging around what you find.
I know.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just fascinating how all, what you're bringing, everyone's bringing in pieces to fill this in. And when you said earlier, you're saying that the woman with the alabaster jar is a conflation. It's not really Mary Magdalene.
Well, here's the thing. It never outright states in the canonical Gospels that the woman who poured nard or myrrh oil over Jesus' feet or head is exactly Mary Magdalene.
Okay.
But a cumulative argument can be made by looking at the overlaps between that story in the canonical Gospels. And, Margaret Starbird just made the out and out case that this woman with the alabaster jar was the same as Mary Magdalene, who was removed of 7 demons and was a noble person who had money and supported the Jesus group. And the same as Mary of Bethany, who was the sister of Lazarus, who was a dear friend of Jesus to the point where he operated Parakaya Pravesh, the yoga to bring a person back to life on Lazarus. Okay. So she thinks they're all the same. Now, of course, then there's this more recent scholarly book that I think tries to debunk that or take that apart. You know how it's interesting. I mean, nothing can really fully be proven, right? And the thing is that what strikes you as true?
Right.
And this is what's going to be, you know, in the class, and it's kind of everything I do. It's what strikes you as true.
Yeah.
That is your medicine.
Right.
Because there could be multiple timelines around this event that people are either remembering differently, or it went down differently, or, you know, on the most esoteric level.
Yes.
It could be that there is a timeline of Jesus going to India with Mary Magdalene, after the crucifixion, living a life there. There could be another, you know, the France story. There could be you know, multiple things that went on and didn't go on.
Right.
And I think what we need to do is just say, how is this speaking to me? What is there for me in this? What does my soul karmically need to know, learn, grasp, and apply in my own life based on this?
It's great. I mean, you're teaching the sovereignty of your own connection to the divine, which is going to be, I think ultimately that's what Mary Magdalene probably and Jesus were all connected to as well.
Exactly, because especially when you look at the Gnostic Gospels, Pistis Sophia and Gospel of Philip and others, kind of, and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene.
I wanted to ask you about that because
it's all there. I mean, they're going deeply into, you know, quantum physics, new age philosophy that is perennial, like it's been around forever, but it's all there. And now that I'm like going back into these Gnostic Gospels after, you know, a decade or more of going into all this exploration, I feel like I do want to do a next teaching, which is like the Jesus mysteries, because he's talking about all that, and he's talking about the archons and the negative forces. And when you look at the Gnostic material from that perspective, you're like, oh my God, suddenly this obscure thing becomes completely clear. It's like it might as well be Magenta Pixie or Elizabeth April or Lisa Renee channeling it, you know? So
great.
It's just astounding. Like the veils are coming off.
Yes.
And we're like, Jesus was talking about this 2,000 years ago.
Right.
Same problems.
And it's so funny because when I first read, you know, Mary Magdalene's gospel, I was trying to find the embodiment, because that's my whole trip is, you know, and I did find clues of embodiment. But then when she went into angels and all this other stuff, I kind of just tuned out, and I couldn't handle the darkness and the this and that. And now I'm like, when I'm tuned into what's going on now, I'm like, oh, whoa, yes, this, you know, I can understand this better now. I can actually understand her gospel better. And I will learn so much more in your course. But, you know, it's like, it's because we're only ready for what we're ready. And
right. The world was only ready for what it was ready for.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it's becoming so obvious to so many people.
Yeah.
What they were talking about. And they came in to address this archonic incursion on the planet. They really did.
Right.
And when you read any of the apocryphal works about what they encountered, Mother Mary, I'm talking about her in my next book, what she encountered in her visions and on the other side. Woo! Scary.
Scary. Right.
They knew all about this. That's why they came in. That's why they came in probably as a soul group.
Right. A soul group. Yes, yes, yes. I wanted to ask you, so you do, one of the mysteries has to do with anointing. So do you connect her then to the woman with the alabaster jar? You yourself?
Yeah, I really, in the end, I do.
Yeah, in the end you do. Okay.
Yeah. And here's also why.
Okay.
Not just that.
Yeah.
When I went into the apocryphal Gospels of Mother Mary,
Uh-huh.
her biographies, which are quite old, some of them might date as early as the 2nd century. That's like practically, a little while after she died.
Yes.
They call, Maximus in the life of the Virgin, I think, calls Mary Magdalene one of the myrrh-bearing priestesses.
Right. Okay. There.
And so we're
Hello.
not just relying on a cumulative argument based on the uh, Gospels. Okay. So that is a key, there it was way long ago. And that's what we're going to look at in this course. What is a myrrh-bearing priestess?
Beautiful. Right. And I, believe it or not, spent a whole year taking a course on the Scent Priestess and its connection to Mary Magdalene. So we worked
Is
with
that Diana Dubrow?
Diana Dubrow and Elaine Kalila Dodi.
I know. I just spoke with her. Tell us about that. Tell us
Well,
about that. What does she teach in that?
yeah, well, I mean, it's just profound because I was connected to the essential oils like 35 years ago or whatever it was, and I chose a particular oil for myself, the first one. And it turned out when I was in this course, um, a- um, Diana tunes into each woman and decides what is her, can't remember what she calls that particular oil, but it's your personal oil.
God. Ooh, more
And
chill.
she chose the oil that I first chose for myself.
Gosh. Are
I
you going to
was
say what
like,
it is or no?
yes, I'm going to tell you. It's
Oh,
ylang ylang, which is,
okay.
hello. It's so connected to the whole sacred marriage and all of that, which I've been interested all along. That's why I was interested in Mesopotamian stuff, was the sacred marriage thing. I mean, actually, I think I told you that the sacred prostitute theme of Mary Magdalene led me to discover the high priestess Enheduanna.
Yeah.
So I
Wow.
didn't, because they were both called that in this Jungian book.
Right.
And I have to tell you also that there is, for the first time ever, happening in New York, a show on Enheduanna and other women who wrote. It's called She Who Wrote, Enheduanna and Other Women, 3400 BC to 2000 BC. It's the first.
I'm about to keel over. What?
I
I
know.
can get to New York City. I was just saying,
Oh, good.
I got to go to New York City. Why on earth ever would I want to go? Where is this?
Okay, it's at the Morgan Library and it's only going until February 19th. I'm going to be at the show on the 18th if you want to.
What?
Yes, I'm going. I would never, I've been avoiding going to New York, even though I made a documentary about Enheduanna, and I'm in touch with the curator, Sidney Badcock, since way back when. He finally pulled it off. And he retires right after this show. This is his crowning achievement of his career.
Wow. It's the Morgan Library?
The Morgan Library in New York City. And yeah,
Wow.
it
Okay.
it ends the 19th. And it, you know what he
Whoa.
says? He says it's the very first show of the ancient Near Eastern field that's only focused on women. It's never been done before.
You know,
I mean, and it's not
Margaret,
going to any other museums.
first poet of crazy, first of all.
Crazy.
The first poet of record was
Of record.
Enheduanna. If that had been a man, right, as we said, it would be plastered all over the subway. You know what I mean?
Totally. Totally.
Oh, the first poet of record, I know. I mean,
And
this
she's
woman was doing sacred poetry, for goodness sake.
exactly. She wrote. She's the first person to name herself in writing. There were anonymous scribes before her, but she
Wow.
actually included herself in these
Wow.
writings to Inanna. So she's promoting Inanna as anyway. I don't want to get too carried away, but
That's,
there's major connections, and the curator, Sydney, says that he thinks that this image, I have to share this image with you, might be
yes.
Enheduanna herself Um,
God.
but we don't know because it's after her time period. But I just have to show you this image, as I've always just thought, oh, it's another high priestess like Enheduanna. But
Oh
guess what
yeah.
she's holding?
Wha-
She's
A
holding
jar?
a jar of
Oh,
potentially ointment.
alabaster. Right. Yeah. A
And
jar of the
here,
oils.
and I'm telling you, Marguerite, I've been immersed in Enheduanna for, more heavily in the past, but she keeps popping into my life. And now this piece comes in right when you mentioned the jar, the alabaster jar, which I've heard of over and over again. But because I just tuned back in, I was reading all of your material about the alabaster jar. I'm like, look what this priestess is holding.
Yeah. The alabaster
The
jar.
alabaster jar.
I mean, I just keep getting chills. And I think we should just go off in this conversation wherever, because it's
Okay,
rare
good.
that I get to be with somebody who is steeped in this material in this way. And this appeals to, particular people, but it also opens it up to a larger audience to be able to say, oh, it's not so scary to read the poems of Enheduanna. It's not so scary to go look at that book to see what is the history of that, like this is accessible. They only make it seem like, oh, you have to be a
A
scholar,
scholar. I know. And
which,
I mean, I have to tell, sorry, I'm interrupting you because I'm all,
yeah, no, go
and
for it.
Juan is thrilled. She buzzes through me for sure. And she's thrilled that we're acknowledging her right now. And
Blessed be.
she, I've already lost my train of thought, what you were saying. Oh, when I discovered her, first of all, I found her in that Sacred Prostitute Jungian book. And all I read was, I Enheduanna, high priestess of the moon god. That's what she says in the poem at one point. She's introducing herself. And I literally felt like a buzz go through me. And I was just like, who are you? How come I've never heard about you? You just spoke in the first person. Like, to me, that was the most accessible thing she could have done to get my attention. I was like, you're a
Yeah,
real person.
right.
And
I
and then I was researching like crumbs in the libraries, and there was just like they were saying very dismissive things about her in the archaeological record.
very dismissive. And then, the distancing factor is that it's these languages are a
I
bit
know.
inaccessible, like at least,
Yes.
okay, the farthest I'm willing to go is ancient Greek. But it's like all these other things are like, I don't know how to decipher and see if they translated this right or wrong.
Right. I know. It's
And
so
that's the thing, they translate stuff
Yep.
in a weird way
Exactly, through their lens.
through their lens, and it's
Yes.
wrong half the time. So then you have to have some intrepid female feminine scholar go in and be like, this
Yes.
didn't say that, it said this, it said that, or it could also mean this.
Right.
Whoa, a whole other, our Father, Hail Mary comes out of it, right?
And that's why I interviewed this woman in Berlin, because she did her dissertation on the most famous poem that Enheduanna wrote. And not many people quote her, and it was in German. So I paid a translator, me and Betty Mador and two other women, paid for a translator to translate her whole dissertation into English. And she's asked me, she said, do you want me to translate this the way it's written or in a way you'll understand? Because academia writing is so,
Right.
hard. And I still had to like comb through, and I asked her a million questions, and she was so amazing. She's in my documentary about Enheduanna. And
Oh,
she,
wow. We should have that link under the video.
oh, good. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it available online? Because I
Yeah, it's
think I
on
have it
YouTube. Yeah.
picked.
Yeah.
I loved what you did years ago, and that's how we met, right?
Right.
Um, wow. Okay. So this is the world of the Magdalene,
I know. I've always felt
world
there
of the
was a connection.
pre-Magdalene, right?
Yes. There's now I'm seeing even more connections, and the fact that Magdalene wrote a gospel, so she also wrote.
And that's the thing. It's like no one knows. Did she write it? Did someone else write it about her?
Right.
Certainly, she is the starring role in it.
Right. Okay.
And she was freaking smart because Jesus talks about her in various of the gospels, like you're the
Right.
one who gets it more than anyone. So
Right.
and she was a noble woman or, a high level. So she could have been educated,
Yeah, definitely.
okay,
Definitely.
in terms of writing
Right.
ability.
Um,
like what if she wrote that gospel?
okay, I
She
always assumed
herself.
she did. You're right. She might not have.
Right. It's unclear.
Unclear. Okay.
Um,
Right. Okay. That's good to
but
know.
the fact that she's the main one um, who's described in it and that she's receiving esoteric teachings,
Right. That's right.
that's a biggie.
That's a biggie. My other, I've forgotten if I even, why is Mary Magdalene always associated? Which I just want to say, I love your burgundy
Oh,
jacket.
it's kind of pink.
Or what
Yeah,
is it?
it's kind of pink.
It's
It's my
pink.
favorite store, Sarana. It's a double-sided thing.
Yeah,
And the necklace too.
but you're wearing it because of, right, the theme of red. Can you talk
Yeah.
about this color of red? And I'm going to share just another
Right.
few pictures. Like, for example, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Sacred scarlet reds, red pinks. Um, to me, that is Magdalene. And, she was always associated with that color, Mother Mary with the cobalt blue. And
Like,
yeah, see,
this picture is stunning. It
and
is.
today she decided to wear this again. Yeah, Sarana clothing store in Berkeley, California. Everyone also
Oh,
buy
well,
things online. The necklaces from there as well. But that necklace as well. It's a real to be a queen store kind of. Andrea Saran. So,
I will check it out now that I'm in the neighborhood.
oh, okay, well, that's a whole other story. All right. Okay, so red, the woman in red,
The woman in
right?
red.
We just associate Mary Magdalene with red, the scarlet harlot, right?
Right. Okay. That's
And
why.
the idea, I don't, I don't know why. I think it's one of those things that we pick up on
Yeah.
in the Akashic records
Okay.
that, this is more her chakra. It's the root chakra, and Mother Mary is, the third eye, the crown, and all that. So they're both ends of the spectrum, right? When you consider, and that's how they were divine birth priestesses.
Right.
One was dealing more with the earth plane, and the other one was dealing more with the astral plane, although they both are dealing with both.
Yeah.
And I just think, the red ray, like you always hear the blue ray, the green ray, the yellow ray. What happened to red? I read it got a bum rap along with Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
Are there any star beings out there who feature in red? We don't know, like it feels like the missing color,
Yeah.
of
And
the spectrum in terms of spiritual connectivity
yeah.
through the realm of light. So it's like if she's the red ray, what is that? It's also like the ray of blood, the ray of menstrual blood, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
The
And that's
ray of the interior of the body.
yeah.
So I think that there's some way that it's Mary Magdalene's embodiment that is expressed through that, and it's Mother Mary's ethereality that is expressed through the blue.
Right.
And I think, like the scent journey,
Right.
as Elaine Kalila said the other day with me, she's like, any one of these things was an entire mystery school, and it's like, we could be here for days and weeks and months and years, just looking at the rays, the scents,
Right.
all of these things and their connectivity to the inner realms of reality, the deeper dimensions.
Yeah.
And how deep, to what dimension are we going? Can we travel? Right. So this is the amazing thing about this material. And it's like the endless font, the gift that keeps on giving, because, right, like looked at it in the 90s, now with this new view, and you yourself looking at this old material, and then it's like, whoa, I didn't see that before.
I
And I
know.
only know that because of this and that and the other thing, and that material that I got directly, these
Mhm.
revelations. So this is why this is so exciting, because it enlivens us. It awakens something within us
Yeah.
that's more than just, intellectual fascination, although that is very stimulating. But
Yeah.
it's how do we translate this into our chakras? And
Right.
kind of, in a way, that's the course, the seven mysteries of
Mhm.
Magdalene, what we're doing, so that we can mine her wisdom for our own lives, our own spiritual journeys, our own healing,
Right.
and then our service in the world of the archons.
Mhm.
All right, because they can't just do it as a little group. We all have to get involved in this process if
Right.
we want to deal with these archons that are there at every rung of the underworld.
Yeah. I have to go back to the sacred marriage again because
Yeah.
Enheduanna's poem mentions that when she like in the poem, she's talking about a historical event that happened where the Sumerians were sort of fighting against her father, who was an Akkadian and was trying to join everyone, but he was sort of taking over, and she represented that force. And so this Sumerian king expels her from the temple, which was so not something anyone else would have written about, because that does not look good. And
Right.
she broke that tradition, right?
Wow.
She shared that she got expelled, and she's asking Inanna for help because the moon god who she serves has sort of not showing up for her. And she's like, Inanna, you're this, you're that, you're amazing, because she's also promoting her to the top of the pantheon of the gods and goddesses. And the king Lugalan hands her a dagger and says, this serves you, or whatever, this suits you better. And he takes her aga crown away, which proves that she's the end priestess, which means that she would channel
Wow.
Ningal, the goddess, the wife of the moon god. Like that crown was, hey, she becomes the goddess in certain rituals here.
Yeah, that's like a technology of some
Yes.
kind.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And then she says in the poem, because she's expelled, she can't do what she normally does as the high priestess. And one of them is she says, I haven't stretched my hand out to the sacred marriage bed. Like she's referring to this ritual. She
Wow.
actually is referring. And I never could fully understand, but there have been new translations and different people bring in different shades. And now it's much more obvious that she's alluding to this sacred marriage that she was involved in.
Wow.
And it's like, oh, Angie.
Yeah, there we go. So
There
she
we
was like not only writing, but she was, engaging in these sacred womb mystery tantric encounters.
Exactly. And it wasn't like she was doing it on the regular. I don't think it was that kind of thing for her, but it
Yeah.
was part of her office.
Yeah, it might have been reserved for special, very special occasions, because at
Exactly.
that high level, that's what you have.
Yeah, exactly. And, there were certain and priestesses and kinds of priestesses, Naditu priestesses. The Naditu were definitely, what do you call,
It's,
celibate.
yeah, they were
So they
virgins.
weren't necessarily doing the sacred marriage right, but they owned land and they were
Right.
respected.
However, it's that weird thing where, yes, they're said to be virgins, and
Right.
yet,
And
I
yet,
look at that in the mystery tradition of miraculous conception, in the section,
right,
one of the chapters on Anne and the section on Sarah, and her context. It's
right,
like,
right,
huh. And yet, there were these laws governing um whether, if a child was born of a sexual,
right. That's right.
a child was born. I thought this was a virgin. This is the confusion,
Yes.
virginity with this. So it really brings up when were the women celibates and when were the women simply sovereign bridal chamber people who had affected the inner unity.
Right.
Okay. And, you know, going back to Esther Harding's good old virginity means whole unto yourself.
Right.
So it's like, what is the role of sex and what is the role of celibacy? And could you choose, you know, or were there different times where you were having to be celibate in order for this sacred marriage ritual to be special?
Right.
Probably.
Yeah.
You know, because Apollo at Delphi, the woman had to become celibate in order to be his wife.
Right.
So she's channeling as Apollo's wife. Again, we have that wife of the god thing.
Right.
Channeling, receiving information, and there's a sexual, erotic kind of connotation about the whole thing.
Right.
This is a mystery that we're like unfurling here.
Yes.
And I think there's going to be more to come about this.
Yes.
Because even when I talk about Mother Mary, I talk about the erotic nature of her parthenogenesis. You had to become one with the erotic creative womb, desire womb of reality in order to, you had to have the male female yin yang within yourself fully in order to give virgin birth.
Right.
So that was erotic. It was sexual. So I do talk about Mother Mary as a sexual being.
Yeah.
But
I know, which I
saved
love.
it all up. She saved it all up, right?
Right. Yes. I mean, and that's related to the whole tantric lineages. It feels like I don't know if you have included any of that's a whole other.
It's a whole other study, and I
Yeah.
just allude to it, you
Okay,
know.
got it. Yeah.
I use the word, but it's like, go off and research your own. There's other people, you know, there's that woman who wrote the book, oh God, I'm forgetting now, but it was like her own kind of encounters with this path in India. Are you recalling? It's been many years since I've even looked at her book. I believe it's in India. Anyway,
Okay.
the practice of sacred union, you know, sexual union in
Okay.
ritual. It's not coming to me. But anyway, okay.
Well, I'm thinking also. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, I have read about, you know,
Miranda Shaw,
oh, Miranda Shaw.
passionate enlightenment,
Oh God, I
kind
love.
of cloaking her own story.
Yeah. Oh, is she?
I believe so. Not to out Miranda Shaw, but you know,
She's amazing.
yeah, about the sexual nature of ritual, passionate enlightenment.
Passionate Enlightenment. Yeah, no, that book blew me away, and I have revisited it because there's so
Yeah.
much in there. Yeah. And what's coming to mind also is, you know, in the tantric tradition, it seems like often it was the woman, the enlightened tantric priestess, who enlightened the man. Like,
That's right. Sri Kaleshwar, in a way, pretty much states that out, that all the male gurus had to get their power from the womb chakra of the females. So wouldn't that lead to rites and rituals,
right. Exactly.
transmission?
Yeah.
And that therefore the sacred marriage was not just a potential conception rite, but a transmission
Mm,
of the Kama womb power to the king so that he could raise himself up in a way that his physiology was not fully allowing access to.
I'm getting chills with what you've just saying there because I've just been researching I'm trying to find the history of the jade egg.
Oh,
And the jade egg, all they can say, this is all anyone has said, and I haven't done a deep dive, but mostly all they can say is that the concubines of the emperor and the queen were the only ones who knew about the jade egg, and often they say it's to keep them vital and alive for the emperor's pleasure. But it was
Right.
also, I found, it was to help him.
Right.
So what
To
you're
keep that
saying,
womb energy flowing to him, not just sexual pleasure energy,
yeah,
but power.
power.
So the queen would have to keep her womb alive for that continual transmission to the king
Yeah,
so that he could rule in a divine way.
yeah,
Of course, my gosh, that all went to heck. And look at Henry, whatever his name, over there with Anne Boleyn.
right.
I mean, that's kind of like the nadir point of what can go on.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
So,
yeah, this is why I love these conversations, because it's like we're bringing through information together,
yeah,
right? And I really hope that everybody watching is getting, stimulated open your own intuitions,
right.
whether you've been steeped in this material or not, whether you've dipped into this material or not, that it's resonating somewhere for you. That is, I know your and my ultimate intention here, our goal.
Exactly. Yes. Because you start being opening to clues that's what I loved about your work is like those books, all that academic research with all these clues, this language that you've uncovered that then we can apply elsewhere. We're starting to see connections and bring in that to me is so exciting. I love seeing
It
that,
is. It
you know.
is. And it's intuitive scholarship. It's the intellectual and the intuition coming together, which is the Magdalene.
Mm.
Okay. Because Jesus was like, hey, you're the smartest one. And Peter's like, what do you mean? What is the meaning of this? I am the head, the male cohort of
Right,
this community. Therefore, I am the entire head, which he wasn't. Mother Mary was.
right.
However, and even Peter would defer to Mother Mary. I
Mm.
talk about that. He would get into a power struggle with Mary Magdalene, but he would defer to Mother Mary.
Ha ha ha.
Very interesting. So that's something I'm bringing forth.
Love.
Um, but there was a place where I was. Oh yeah, okay. So this coming Friday, February 17th, on my YouTube channel, is going to be a live Lady Cannabis ceremony with me for the global community, where the focus is going to be on Mary Magdalene. So I'm going to be in high oracle state, and then it will be recorded. It will stay on my Marguerite Rigoglioso YouTube channel.
Mhm.
But anybody can go there now and hit the notification bell or afterward watch this in replay to see
Mhm.
what happens. And, if you can come, Michelle, it's 11:30 a.m. Eastern, on Friday, February 17th.
Oh,
It would be great for you to your questions, like
okay.
start getting your questions in. All right.
Yeah.
And we'll look into it.
Okay.
Because when I'm in that super open place,
Mm.
a lot of information comes through. I mean, God, I could be going for several hours on that one. And I'm really excited. I mean, this is the first time I will have looked at the Magdalene material in any deep way
Right.
in ceremony like that.
Right.
And opened up the questions to the global community, and, just really in prep this week, connecting with Mary Magdalene, like, what does she want revealed? And,
Wow.
she's all about service. She's all about
Mm.
others, humanity.
I know
She's
because
all about humanity.
she's often, connected to the way of love, as Kathleen McGowan would
Uh,
coin it. The way of love was how the followers identified themselves. They were following the way of love.
wow. And that would be the Mary name. Mary comes from Miriam, Mariam, which comes from Mary in Egyptian, which means love, divine love, the beloved, the loving one,
Mm.
the one who is love. And it was an honorific title connected to Isis. So the Mary is the priestess of divine love.
Love that. And that's what Elaine is also, I think, in Rosa Mystica, we were
Yeah.
focusing on that as well. It's
And
beautiful.
I love it how when people come at it from different angles, right? Like, oh, the Egyptian verification of that,
Yeah,
whoever, right?
right.
But
And
it
you
is,
know,
it's about love, and it's about love and passion. Magdalene was so much about love and passion together. That's the red.
exactly. And the heart is red.
The heart is red, the heart chakra.
So, there's anyway, I just, yeah, I appreciate because I had to wear red because of that. And I
Yeah,
just,
I know.
I just feel like it, and the blood and, an honoring of the, oh, this is something I wanted to ask you. Did you see in the news? Apparently, a few weeks ago, there was a gigantic red cloud that looked like a vulva over Turkey.
Hilarious.
And they're calling it a UFO shaped cloud.
Hilarious. Oh my God. It's like the yoni,
The yoni
the holy womb chakra over Turkey. She's
over
right
Turkey.
there. And
I
it's like,
mean, we're starting the year of the yin rabbit with a bang,
wow. Right.
right?
Amazing. I want to see that one.
I have it. I posted it on
Because it's like,
Facebook.
even if it is the aliens, it's like, why that shape? Why
I
that color?
know.
They're like, hey, let's shake it up a little bit for those earthlings. Maybe they had a female crew. Maybe they were from Venus, Lyra, whatever. They're like, hey,
OMG.
this one's for you. They know that it's all these geeky, disclosure people are usually, right? Okay. I love them, but still, it's largely a male thing.
It is. It really is. So apparently these clouds, they're called lenticular cloud
Oh,
formation.
yeah, lenticular.
And they're usually white and they look sort of like spaceships often.
That's right.
Well, this
You
one
see them
happened.
over Mount Shasta, at the top of Mount
Oh, you
Shasta.
do? Okay.
Yeah, there was one over the mountain where I live here.
Oh,
Yeah, like years ago. It's been documented. Because these mountains are portals in any event.
right.
Okay. So, okay.
Yeah. So
I
just
got to see this.
you
Please send it out.
I will send. Well, it also reminds me, when I was really researching a different goddess each week for my womb power class, I discovered a myth about Pele.
Oh,
She was about to be raped by the pig God, sorry, a pig god was about to rape her. Her sister saw this and shape-shifted into a flying vulva. He got distracted, chased her all the way from the big island to Oahu, where she slammed down onto the earth and trapped him. And there's a crater there that looks just like a large vulva.
hilarious. So it's like she's back over Turkey,
Exactly.
What is she? She's trying to, get the distraction level going.
Isn't that
For
amazing? And
atrocities. Wow.
and in Hawaii, they totally recognized that they called it the koelele, the flying vulva, and they called the crater koelele something until the missionaries came and called it Coco something, and which meant blood. So they were
Wow.
keeping somewhat connected, but just couldn't handle the vulva
You know
aspect.
what? We should talk to Elon Musk or whoever it is that's getting these crafts together
Right.
and make sure that he has a vulva, a flying vulva. All right. I mean, they can even start doing it with cars on the planet to get people used to it. A vulva car. Wouldn't that be just so great?
Amazing.
Mary Kay would probably take up on it. They have the pink cars.
Right. So this is what I also want to ask you. Have you ever seen when women, they show the yoni in this shape, and they show that they think that the yoni looks like Mother Mary or could be Mary Magdalene,
Totally.
right?
Absolutely. I mean, all the images, the Virgin of Guadalupe,
Yeah.
all of these
Always in this.
it's a vulva.
It's a vulva, and I also feel like there's a connection to the egg, and that, this whole egg thing with Mary Magdalene after the
There's that image of her holding the
holding
egg.
the egg.
That one.
And I know that that's connected to Easter, and that apparently she brought eggs to Maximus and was saying, you did Jesus wrong, basically. And she was standing up for Jesus, apparently. And
Oh.
she said something about she could prove she turned the eggs red.
See, there we go.
There's another, connection here.
Between the womb, the egg, which is the, it's one of the primordial shapes
Yeah.
of the vulva or of the womb, in a
The womb.
sense.
Right.
It's what contains the universe within it. Because when you look at the fractal of the Mandelbrot set, when they plot it out in coloration, and you can go and see these things online, the Mandelbrot, Mandelbrot, it's a fractal that they're plotting an equation on the imaginal plane. This is so interesting. They did it with IBM computers. Anyway, it's an endless fractal, okay, that goes in and in and in. But the main image of it, when you turn it right side up, is a womb. It's almost anatomical. They always put it the other way so that it looks like Buddha sitting there. But if you turn it upside down, it's like, this looks like the interior lining of the womb and the vagina. But the exterior of it, how the exterior of it looks, is an egg. So it's like, which came first, the yoni or the egg?
Right.
All right, now there's something for you people to put on a bumper sticker on that yoni card that you're going to get going. That could even be, the tagline, the marketing of it. So, but this is what we're talking about. Like, what came first, the yoni or the egg?
Right.
This is a deep philosophical, universal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure probably that was in the missing 5 pages of the Gospel of Mary.
Mary, I know. Isn't that so frustrating?
Like,
Those
dang,
missing pages.
what was in there, and gosh knows what other documents, this is why people are just channeling,
Yeah.
accessing the Akashic records.
Right. Right. If you can't get it from the archaeological record yet, it may appear down the road still. That's what I love, is that eventually there's little discoveries.
Validating everything, the terma that show up, the little terma, the hidden things.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, but it all goes back to what I just love your ultimate message is that, well, in the meantime, since we don't have these proofs, we have to source within and channel, or just go with what the intuition feels right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they may have burned the Library of Alexandria, but they cannot burn the Akashic records, even though there have been attempts.
Oh, wow.
Is what I'm receiving by the archonic forces.
Oh, wow.
Even though that's one of their things. They want to get rid of that, and they want to get rid of karma so that they don't have to pay for what they did, or they don't have to receive the ramifications of what they did.
Whoa.
They were trying to do that. Yeah. Atlantean, that was like the deepest levels of Atlantis and stuff. So we can still access the Akashic records, which is why oracle work and channeling has gone, it's been shown to be demonic, and, whatever it is, people's pineal glands have been shriveled so that we're not accessing, because the Akashic records is still there, even though they've been trying to do away with it. So it's all within.
It's all within. And I'm still not exactly, because I don't relate to the Akashic records so much, but I relate to embodiment and the intuition that comes through.
It's all in you. It's what Jesus was saying. in those gospels. The inner is the outer is the inner. The kingdom of heaven is, or your queendom of heaven is within you.
Right.
That's what that teaching is. It's the embodiment teaching. And I think that's what Magdalene was all about. One of her mysteries, I call it bringing heaven to earth, where, she's ascending and descending 7 times a day in the cave in Santa Bom toward the end of her life. Okay.
Yes.
Because she's bringing it in.
I just read that recently.
Blood red into the blood red reality of human existence.
What did you say about the blood red thing?
She's bringing it into the blood red reality.
Blood red reality. Right. Right. And, in the Anne Boleyn book, they talk about going the pilgrimage. Anne Boleyn went to that with I can't remember. She was basically being trained by French queens.
Wow.
And they were
who are supposed to be in the lineage of Mary Magdalene.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they went to that cave and they saw where she had they climbed up where the ascension thing was happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's so profound, and it's like, okay, so it just leads us to kind of get quiet and go within ourselves and access that bringing heaven to earth and access all the knowledge to be known, all the records, all the timelines, all the histories. And, the activation of our DNA, the full activation of our divine human DNA, the Anthropos, they were really big on that. And in the Mary Magdalene gospel, they're talking about, we are attempting to become the Anthropos, which is the divine human.
Oh, wow.
They were all about that.
So it's like an honoring of humanity and the divine coming together. That's where right. It's usually cut and it's all up and it's not, the womb and the yoni and, right. It's like these are 2 separate systems.
That's right. Yeah, I know. It's like uniting, weaving together the womb, the heart, and the third eye, right? As 3 of the primary areas of the body that need to be woven in, and that women intrinsically have or could recultivate that connection. That's a lot of what I'm about and what the Magdalene work is, because here she is, a seer who's a tantrika, who's a priestess of love.
Right.
So,
and because I often wonder about you, because you are so prolific, I mean, you're constantly bringing in new material. I wonder, what do you think is sourcing? How are you staying fueled and energized to be able to do that? Do you?
Well, one thing I started doing was walking uphill for a half hour 3 or 4 times a week to get my chi and my blood flowing again. I have to do it in a more rigorous way. I have to take care of myself physically. I have to sleep well. Mm-hmm. I have to eat mindfully. And I'm not a fanatic about anything. Marguerite, she still eats gluten. All right, do not take away her gluten. She's Italian. She has pasta occasionally. But it's more like, and also I meditate now every day, and I do the running of energy, working colored light through my system the way I was taught in my psychic school.
Okay.
Does a lot. And every day now I am asking Mother Mary to merge with me, all of her chakras with mine, activate my supernal light body, or the Christ Sophia light. And I ask Mary Magdalene to merge her holy womb chakra with mine. And I'm trying to explore what's the difference between Mother Mary's holy womb chakra and Mary Magdalene's. I think Mary Magdalene's is a little more focused on the Kundalini, desire energy,
Right.
And so those are just things that I'm doing right now. It has changed over time. But I did do that running of energy practice that I learned in psychic school at the Foundation for Spiritual Development in San Rafael, California for many years, for 10 years. and then I regularly work with Mama Cacao, and now I'm back working with cannabis a little bit as an opener.
Mm-hmm.
But, because of the psychic training and that running of energy at will, even in our conversation, I'm just getting a tremendous amount of information. So then it's just a matter of like writing it down, like making sure that I write it down.
Right.
But
Which the writer in you really is a huge asset.
I know.
You know?
Really, it's a blessing. I mean, I understand those scribes. I think I was a scribe.
Yeah.
In numerous lives where I would just be like writing things down, recording the every move of King so-and-so,
Right. Totally.
Yeah. And but then I've been in nunneries where I was educated.
Right.
And
Right.
so I have a lot of that education energy that I bring in, and that love of texts and reading, and also just taking time off, that's important, to have balance
Right.
in your life. It's not a 24/7 burnout situation.
Right.
You have to get with the fairies. You have to get with the outside world.
Mm.
The fairies are a big part of my life now.
Right. I love that.
And, over time, you become more and more open, wiser, and receiving more information.
Yeah.
So I am moving into that phase of life, right? We all are.
Yeah.
And more comes.
Yeah. And it comes because you're not fighting it and you're still, we're told that this phase of life is not very exciting. It's not very
Right.
sexy. It's like blah, it's all downhill and it's like so far from the truth.
Yeah, they want you to do that, the archons, because they know it's easier for you to access the Akashic record material. And the more you keep your hair white, the easier you are seen and located by divine sources.
Now that is so cool. That is
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Diana Dubrow must instinctively know all about that,
Yeah.
So it's like, ladies, reconsider the
Mhm.
dyeing of the hair, because it's like putting tar on your hair, and it prevents your crown from being able to access, potentially, not necessarily for everyone. Anyway, this is just what I've gotten.
Right.
Some material, some of the information.
Well, I have to bring this to the woman who I interviewed who used to balance my hair with sacred geometry. She was cutting with sacred geometry. She still does, and she trains people. And she has played with the gray coming into her hair in all these fabulously inspiring ways, helping women. She said that COVID totally blew the whole gray hair thing off because
Everybody stopped coloring. Like 4 of my major friends stopped, and they look fantastic.
yeah, exactly. It's so she has all this stuff about the crown chakra and how cutting the hair is your hair is your cosmic antenna,
That's it.
right? And so if you're cutting each strand 3 different ways, you're tuning this whole
Wow.
system. I know it's
So funny,
fascinating.
because a little while ago I was thinking I really like Michelle's haircut.
Oh,
So I don't know if she's been working on it, but
unfortunately, she hasn't. This is the first one that didn't get cut with sacred geometry in a long time because I've moved away.
oh, right.
But thank you though. I appreciate that. And I don't color my hair. There is gray coming in because I'm blonde. It doesn't show.
That's right. That's
But I
right.
can't. Yeah, I can't color my hair without. I got a rash when I got highlights, and so there's just no way I can do that
Right.
to myself.
Yeah, I know. We just need this antenna. And it's like, what I'm getting right now is that you might think that it's loss of vitality, but it's actually a tuning up of your connectivity. That's interesting. I mean, I never like fully, because on the human level, you're like, oh, right. Aging, it's diminishment, and they're like, not every aspect of aging is diminishment.
Yeah, exactly. It's expansion,
So yeah, it's
deepening.
expansion, you know, And then there's that whole thing about Mary Magdalene in the cave.
Yeah.
She had very long dreadlocks or whatever it was, right? They even picture her sometimes as fully covered
That's
in.
right. That's right. I saw that image and that was like,
Right.
if that didn't say something about hair and its
Women's
power.
hair and its power, because she needed that to be going to heaven 7 times a day. Right? That was like her little, part of her access mechanism.
Oh, and that's true. They often say that she was redheaded. I don't know if you've
Oh, no, I
heard
never
that.
heard that.
Okay, yeah. Some people, there's traditions where there's some Celtic connection with her.
Oh, I love that. But of course, because, Lisa Renee talks about Mary Guinevere Sophia, or she really puts together Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and Guinevere. Yeah, in her Shifting Timelines audio and written blog. If you go through the past couple of years, you'll see almost every month she's making that connection between those three and Sophia, and showing us their ultimate, star level,
Mhm.
astral interdimensional connectivity, that they're all like octaves of one another, Arthur and Guinevere, Mary Magdalene and Jesus, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and so that's a very important place where we're all starting to draw these threads together now, and understanding, oh, this is part of even one larger being that might speak to different peoples at different times and different
Right.
cultures. And who knows what's in other cultures and other races and things like that, that would be the equivalent.
And there is some mythology around Mary Magdalene going to Avalon or Glastonbury. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I know that Anne, grandmother of Jesus, went.
She did? Okay.
She supposedly is buried at the foot of the Tor. Yeah, I know. Gives me chills. And Magdalene, yes, I believe that she did go there. There's lore about her being there with Joseph of Arimathea.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so that's a whole other.
Uh, right. Which you obviously are focusing in on. You can't include everything about Mary Magdalene.
No,
Of course, it's not
no, it would just
necessary.
be new layers based on some of the more familiar things that we've got,
Yeah.
things that haven't quite been said before or looked at in with this
Right,
angle.
which I so appreciate. I mean, you're bringing in the whole divine birth thing in a way
Yeah.
that's, in fact, your work was what in which finally shed light on the sacred marriage stuff that I wondered about in Mesopotamia. Like I was like, how is this ever going to be understood? And then you are talking about divine birth, and I was like, oh my God, this is all starting to come into
Yeah.
way more.
That's right. It's part of a complex or a continuum or something,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Um, the Qadesha as virgin and whore,
Yes, yes, yes.
as virgin and harlot.
Gosh, I was just about to ask you about something.
It'll come back.
I know it'll come back because it's like it went away and came back and
Yeah, right. Yeah, these things are, yeah,
um
yeah.
it's just so integrating, you know. So many pieces are coming together that is just
Mm-hmm. I know, it's like now is the time on the planet. It's a very activated time for this, and for yoni vehicles to be flying around in the sky. You know that there's going to be some other kind of Buddhist story about it. Um, so yeah, I'm going to just tune in with you to see
okay.
what else is wanting to
Yeah.
come through for this conversation.
Oh, okay. One thing, if
Mhm.
may I interject?
Sure.
Okay. So you talked about Catherine Ann Clement, um,
Yes.
her work. And I remember when I read her book eons ago that they talked about Mary Magdalene and Jesus and how they were having non physical sex.
Okay, interesting.
Don't know.
Right. So this would be Catherine Ann Clement, who is the one who regressed Claire
Claire
Hartsong
Hotson.
to
Right.
be able to receive
Yes.
the two books of material that she did, Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, and then Anna, Voice of the Magdalens.
Right.
Now, I poked in those books years ago enough just to see that she was verifying divine birth as light conceptions and things like that.
Light conception. I love that term.
Light conceptions, okay. And I have had them for years. I wouldn't ever part with them, but something is internally telling me not to read them, at least not right now.
Okay.
Same thing with various other people. Just to keep to my own knowing, and eventually it will be fascinating to see what she says. But one thing I do know is that she says, as did Sri Kaleshwar, that Jesus had numbers of consorts, and whom he impregnated. And that's a little uncomfortable to hear. And I remember reading at least part of the area in one of Claire's books, that this was uncomfortable for her to be channeling through, that, Magdalene, there were others, and Magdalene had to deal with some of these other women.
Yeah, that I didn't enjoy that part
I
either.
know, I didn't enjoy that one. So let's just look into that, because it's like, what is that? Maybe that's medicine for somebody, but that would be also a great thing for the cannabis, the Lady Cannabis Santa Maria ceremony.
Okay.
But just for me and us to tune in right now to the question is, what's the difference between sacred marriage as a monogamous situation and sacred marriage or tantra as a polyamorous situation?
Mm-hmm.
Because we get very upset about, some of us,
Mm-hmm.
about the more than one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I'm getting is that also that is a factor of patriarchy, where it was so deeply threatening for women to think about their partners having multiple partners, because they were dependent on the male economically. And so there were a lot of distortions that came in. And it also got twisted into male only polyamory, not female polyamory as well. What I'm getting right now is they're saying, well, it ain't that easy to be either monogamous or polyamorous. It's any type of relationship is going to bring up the archonic forces into your situation, because of how we are on the earth plane right now, where they are hooked into our wounds. This is why the bridal chamber, as mentioned in the Gospel of Philip, was a purified, rarefied place where a couple would come together without any interference by these archonic forces. In order to be able to do that, they, in a sense, needed to already have affected the bridal chamber within, because that's where they weren't as vulnerable to those outside forces if it was two bridal chamber people coming together in the bridal chamber. So they're like, don't worry so much about polyamory, monogamy. They're like, just focus on your inner bridal chamber, because that will determine your level of empowerment on the earth, your level of comfort, your choices. And for some people, the monogamy is the medicine right now, like just perfecting one relationship, for others, it's perfecting multiple relationships. And if you think about it, the Qadesha would be having, they were the women who were having the multiple partners. Okay. So right there, now that's suppressed.
That's very
And they're just called whores, prostitutes. They were polyamorous priestesses. Okay.
Whoa, what a way to
Boom.
look at.
Here we go. I mean, this is new. This is new. And this is what happens when we get into, like, where two or more are gathered and we're getting into our open state.
Yeah.
So this always happens, together with you, Michelle.
So
So they're saying, just take a breath. Don't worry about that. Focus on what you need for your own life, which is enough right now.
yeah.
There's distortions and misuse of sacred marriage monogamy, and there's distortions and misuse of polyamory, because we're still working with getting rid of those demons that Mary Magdalene had to get rid of, and so forth. So that's what, just don't worry so much about it.
I love what you said, that the inner sacred bridal chamber within, is that how you call it?
Yeah, the bridal chamber within.
Bridal chamber within. I feel that that is very connected to women taking ownership of their sexual energy.
Yes.
Like, we've been basically told not to, shamed into owning our sexual energy. And right. And I think that it's going to be different for every woman, but I mean, cervical orgasms are cosmic spiritual experiences.
And that's what the yoni egg does.
Exactly.
I personally, that's how I have been able to have a cervical orgasm best, is with the yoni egg. Wow. Now, some women are able to have it with a phallic encounter.
Yeah.
But we're all working that out, because there's so much tightness that's been put in there, tags and whatnot. Indigo Angel, it does a lot of clearings for people. I do think that Kaleshwar's holy womb chakra mantras are meant to clear. It's another technology for clearing.
Technology.
But yeah, that yoni egg, that jade egg, allows for the cosmic orgasm.
And also, I've been tuning into it just through energetically. Not that I've had the cervical orgasm yet in this conscious way. I did have one by accident in the jungle of Guatemala when I was 27.
Wow.
And this is where I feel like there's a connection to divine birth, is that I had just met this English guy, hadn't been very long. I was traveling with two Argentinian women who left me with him. We went on this hike. I got almost dehydrated. I couldn't, I'm like, don't touch me until we get back, because I've got to drink water. Once we were lying down on this hay bale in this little dirt hut, we were just hanging out, relaxing, and he was barely touching me over my yoni, barely. And then at one point I said to him, wow, all I can feel is my head. My whole body is merged with the universe.
Wow.
And I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know when it started. I didn't know when it ended.
Wow.
And I was in this state for 3 days, semi sort of aroused, and just in this very wonderful state. And it's only now 30 plus years later, that I'm like, oh, I'm going to learn how to do this. I now know that everything I've been teaching in womb power is actually leading to it.
Right. Exactly. Cosmic orgasm.
Orgasm. And I know the jade egg was part of it for me in my studies so far, but I'm saying that, there's different ways for women to do it, I think. But I love that you can do it with a jade egg.
Yeah, try working that jade egg.
I've just started.
Pull it up and down and up and down. Okay. And you just make sure it's nice. Okay, here we go. For everybody, Just make sure that it's nice and lubricated, and you just keep pulling it up and down. And at some point, you won't even need clitoral stimulation. You will be able to have the orgasm by itself. So there's something about that, of how it touches the cervix.
And
Vagina.
strengthens the walls of the vagina.
That's right.
Very articulate and
Mm-hmm.
alive.
Yeah, yeah. And it is something that a woman can keep alive throughout her life.
Exactly.
Okay.
The aging vagina is a myth.
It is a myth, you know, with that tool. I do also think Christiane Northrup's formulas of Puraria Mirifica, as both a pill and a yoni cream salve, are good. It definitely builds up the vagina for sure. So these are, and you know, that's working with the plant world. As the body changes, then you work with the plant world, not necessarily a pharmaceutical hormone, which is going to lead you down, you know, paths. So, right. Okay. Wow. So here, this is Magdalene with Marguerite and Michelle, you know, she's like, very practical. All right. She had a yoni egg in that cave. How do you think she was going to heaven 7 times a day? Woman was doing it. So, yeah.
Which again is also this inner sovereignty. Like, yes, it can be accomplished in sacred union with the masculine. And I've heard, you know, women and women can have cervical orgasms also with fingers, and, you know, like, and then women alone.
That's right.
Need to know that they can develop the skill on their own if they're not in partnership.
That's right. The sovereign. And yes, and it is about that inner bridal chamber. And Elaine Kalila, in our conversation earlier this week, said, so I'm not like sharing anything that's not public. She said it in that conversation, that she had experienced the inner lovemaking. Now imagine that, because all of our inner lovemaking has been fraught with fantasy that comes from the pornography industry. A lot of times. Which has all those archonic energies, and it's like, get that out of me, you know. But it hooks into us. It's so addictive, right? I mean, this is the thing about clearing the yoni space and the mental space around arousal.
Yes.
That's the bridal chamber, because they are really talking about not having those entities in there.
Would you say, when you're working the jade egg and you're, I guess, maybe intending to have a cervical orgasm, that would be the same as what Elaine was talking about, the inner lovemaking? Or are you differentiating?
Mine is physical.
Oh.
Hers, I think she's getting somewhere. Okay. What you want to do is unify your yoni egg and your cervix with your heart, right?
Yes.
And then your head, your cosmic. That is one orgasm. All right. And that's when you'll have what she's having.
Exactly.
Right. So I think there's so much work, play to be done for women, for themselves with this.
Oh, yes.
Right. Sovereign. And, you know, maybe that's why so many women are single right now. They have an opportunity to look into this, yet don't know so much about it. And yet it could be a very satisfying way of being, but it's not just the physical yoni egg thing. It's these other aspects of the inner bridal chamber and the seeing that Magdalene had. So I feel like she's really bringing in some stuff. I'm going to have to listen back to this, Michelle, and like bring it into that particular class.
Good.
For some practices with some recommendations for yoni eggs.
Yes.
Maybe you could do that.
Oh, sure.
We'll have links to where people can get them.
Yeah. And I do think, though, also that just the becoming aware of sensation in the cervix and yoni and womb, just by doing that, you're bringing down the descending feminine energy.
That's right.
And then when you go into the body, you actually activate the masculine ascending energy,
Okay.
and you bring it up to the heart, and it go.
Wow.
So this
So,
alone to me is a huge aspect of the energetic aspect of having a cervical orgasm energetically.
wow.
And to me, I'm wondering if that, I mean, to me, that sounds like a marriage of the feminine.
That's right. Of course. It is part of the inner bridal chamber. It's
Exactly.
the masculine feminine unification,
Yeah.
the yin yang,
Yin
right?
yang.
So to speak. And
Exactly.
yeah, I could see why there would be a whole mystery school devoted to this.
Right?
I think, you're doing that a lot with your work and your courses, right? You're retrieving information, teaching it to other women.
And it's coming from being in this part of the body that there's so much resistance and shame and
Right.
layers that need to be,
That's right.
let go. But the more you go in, the more you let go, and the more things
Yeah.
come in. That's how
Yeah.
it's evolved for me, because I didn't intend to go here.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just was like time.
Well, this is all quite profound because it's all about, yeah, with the timeline of Mary Magdalene being in France in Santa Baume, becoming an older woman, presumably.
Yes.
Um, yeah, what were her tantrika practices at that point, right? And I think, again, yes, an entire mystery school of this that, people have been getting pieces or doing aspects of this. And
Yes.
there are people, Anaya Sophia has been talking about uh, post-menopausal sexuality and arousal and things like that.
Mm,
Because that's a whole big shift in a woman's life. It's like a bit of a shock, like, whoa, the
yeah.
hormones kind of made it all easy to be aroused and things like that and to have an
Right.
orgasm. And now without so much of that, whoa, where does this leave us,
Right.
Um, this is a big area, a big mystery. I know you're onto it. I know you're working it. And yeah, Mary and Mary Magdalene, I think Magdalene, carries more of this valence
Yes. I
of postmenopausal sexuality.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
she's good to have around as a mentor, like access her,
Yeah.
ask her, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And she's always been a guiding light, I think, because of this valence, whatever age,
Yeah.
because many
Yeah.
women, and myself included, basically suppressed that energy. I mean,
I
that's
know.
why I can't not anymore, because
Yeah.
I'm like finding out what I was missing out on in terms of, not even in terms of like having great sex or anything. It's more like accessing your life force and your essence and your ability to stand up for yourself and have boundaries. And I mean, there's so much power internal that is essential, and sovereignty of your beliefs, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why any of the work that can take off these clamps on that part of the body is very important. You're doing that work. I'm doing that work. Sri Kaleshwar brought forth Indigo Angel, Z Earth Star. Those are the ones that I immediately know of. And I know, there are others.
Yeah.
So because Saren and Azra Bertrand have a very beautiful
Yes.
book on the Magdalene mysteries, and I'm starting to look into that.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, I would imagine they are tapped in for
They
sure.
are tapped in.
Yeah. As a sacred marriage couple, right, who are having children.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so as we get older in our bodies, in our human bodies, right. So this is a whole other area, like because I think that on some level I was like, well, Mary Magdalene, now I'm postmenopausal. Okay, that was for when I was all, juicy and blah, blah, blah. Now, and through this conversation, I'm realizing, oh, Mary Magdalene on a whole new rung of the spiral,
Yeah.
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 Now, then there's also the mystery of totally rebirthing the body and rejuvenating and living for hundreds of years. That was another thing that was going on in antiquity and whenever.
Yes. Yes.
And we hear it talked about in like boiling people in milk or whatever, kids' milk or something, like the
Goat.
animal. Yeah, the goat.
Okay.
And there was a ritual that went wrong and they boiled the guy to death, but that was an immortality ritual where you go through a death rebirth rejuvenation of your body, physical body.
Wow.
That's a whole other thing.
And there's, those in Mesopotamian mythology, they would list the kings from very beginning and how old they were, and they hundreds of years they lived.
Name in the Bible, right? Because of many different factors. And at some point in antiquity, it was like, well, we're not naturally living this long anymore. So how can we artificially induce this? And it required a physical repurposing after a while, a rebirthing.
Yeah, I think that, our longevity is longer than it was for a period of time, but I think it's coming to a new level of where there are more natural ways for that to be occurring.
That's right.
Not just about medicine that's, Western medical ideas of how to stay healthier with vaccines and this, not the other, whatever they consider, right. And part of it is the sexual energy and being able to,
that's right,
that to refuel yourself.
And who's a really great one for this? Montauk Chia.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now he's taught some classes at the Shift Network that I feel like I should be checking into that. Because he provides these old ancient Asian, I'm not sure what culture, methods of stimulation of the breasts and this and that, and then you see the circuit going on and on. I mean, it should be in kindergarten class, right?
Absolutely.
So there are these things available.
Yes, absolutely.
And he's talking about like this gives you endless vitality.
Exactly.
And the functioning of your sexuality.
The so-called taboo subject is actually the most rejuvenative healing aspect.
That's right.
For your health.
That's right.
And connects you to your spirituality. Like it's just been completely.
It's a hijacked area.
Hijacked.
Major feeding trough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could go on and on with that discussion, but it's interesting how this is what's coming up for us with the Magdalene conversation. I love it. Because I think she is the governor of this whole thing.
I agree. I so agree. And, I just know for myself, it took decades for that aspect of her to finally come through for me. And so I'm just so grateful and I'm so glad that that's part of what you are sharing about her, because.
Yeah. Well, it's up to the minute, almost in the moment reception of this information.
Wow.
As we're gathered and gathering, like I'll have notes for the class, but then more stuff is going to happen. And then, there's so much for everybody to continue on with on their own. So, I'm going to just be able to bring forth some pieces and practices that people can work with.
Amazing.
But I'd love to see this yoni egg come in, because I think a lot of the people in the class are going to be some will be postmenopausal women, so-called. And I think we need that healing to know that Magdalene is not just for young hormonal women. Exactly.
Yes. She lived a ripe old age
Yeah,
and had so much to give. And
right. That's right. And so this is what happens when we start opening to these mysteries and these women and these people
mhm,
and their deity aspects,
mhm.
their anthropos incarnations. Wow. Wow. I'm so glad that we've been able to have this conversation. And yeah, I'd like to, in the show notes, I'd like to have your course, if it's still available,
Sure.
in the link. And then of course, we warmly invite people to come to the 7 Mysteries of Magdalene course at sevensistersmysteryschool.com/Magdalene. And that will remain available in replay on into the future. So yeah, I'm excited about this, because as I really delve in and open, it's like, oh my God, the well is bottomless.
I know. I'm so excited. I mean, I think it's going to be off the charts. I mean,
Yeah.
everything you do is amazing, but this feels so exciting on a whole other level. I mean, it's
New
just,
level.
yeah,
Yeah, because it connects with so many people who have been tuned into or forced into Christianity also, as well as those who are like, weren't, but are like, wait, hark, what is this Magdalene? What is this Mary?
yeah.
Um, so it's a lot bigger than Christianity, but it's providing a healing balm to a lot of people who have been experiencing the archons connected with Christianity. It's getting us to the esoteric substratum, the endless stream well, of this material.
Are you, so you're, what I think I just heard you say is that part of the formation of Christianity had the Archon influence right from the start.
It came right in
Yeah. It,
at the crucifixion and before, you
okay.
know what I mean? Like they were like feeding right off. In fact, just after Mother Mary gave birth, what do we
Because
have?
they
Where
knew it was
my son
right,
Herod is smelling a rat,
right.
that they're divinely born 2 children, John and Jesus, and he's like, oh my God, find them and kill everyone. Kill all the babies. We can't have these avatars running around. And she's like, holy crap,
Right.
So they're on the run.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were just facing it every step of the way.
Right. And it's that same in plain sight thing where, you know, Christianity was supposed to go a different direction.
That's right. In fact, it's the deepest level of any esoteric tradition there. And there are other traditions, but it got into that substratum. It emerged from that. Of course, the archonic forces are just feeding right off, twisting, undermining, hijacking, turning upside down, everything they do. And Lisa Renee is the really good descriptor of how that goes on
Mm-hmm.
internal planes. I mean, it's harrowing when you see in the technology that's involved by these forces that go into include AI,
Right.
so it's like, be that as it may,
Right.
we are working with our supernal Christ Sophia light body. That's what we're focusing on here. The Anthropos, getting all that stuff, emerging, birthing ourselves like the rose, like the lotus, getting all that stuff off of us
Yeah.
and communing and communicating through that.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Thank you for doing this
Oh, you're
beautiful work.
welcome.
The way you can weave all of the history, academic, channeled, and archons, and what to be doing today, and
Okay.
all that woven together and integrated like that
And
is
guess
huge.
what? The Qadeshim were the weavers.
They were.
They were the weavers. Mother Mary was, quote, weaving when she conceived
That's
Jesus.
right.
So it's all about the weaving function, the weaving energy, neath the great autogenetic goddess of all, was a weaver.
A weaver. That's right.
Okay, so we are weavers. We are the weavers.
And whenever I see anything about weaving now, I think of how you talked about it in those
Yeah,
books.
the early books. Yeah, the Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece and Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity, especially where I talk about Neith. Yeah, they are the weavers. And that is a great creatrix function.
I just keep connecting weaving and integrating, like the two. This is how we weave within ourselves all of these planes, multi-dimensions, is we have to integrate it.
Even the image of DNA is a weaving image.
Right.
Okay. And that's just even the simple-minded start of 2 strands of DNA when we're being told, hey, there's 12, 13, 24, 48. What does that mean?
Wow.
Talk about weaving a tapestry
Exactly.
of the Holy of Holies.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what we're about. What does this mean for our lives? Weave that tapestry of the Holy of Holies, people. You are the tapestry. You are the weaver. You are the Holy of Holies.
Beautiful.
Blessed be.
Blessed be. Thank you so much, Marguerite. This was
Welcome.
beyond what I could
Thank
have imagined.
you. I know, me too. Thank you, Michelle, as always, for your hearted work.
My pleasure.